I spent most of my life convinced that the past stays where you leave it. You grow older, you get a little more responsible, you forget the stupid versions of yourself who thought being the funniest guy in the room was a personality trait. You imagine those years boxed up in old yearbooks, half-deleted photos, and people you never thought about again. Then someone knocks on your door and reminds you that time doesn't erase anything. It just waits. It happened on a Thursday afternoon. I had just gotten home from work. Normal day. Slightly annoying traffic. Grocery bag with eggs almost falling through the bottom. Nothing that would have hinted that my entire life was about to stretch wider than I ever prepared for. When I opened the door, there he was. A young man, tall, posture stiff like he'd rehearsed standing exactly there. He looked nervous. Not the kind of nervous you get before asking for directions. The kind you get before changing your life. He cleared his throat and introduced himself. "My name is Adam." He looked at me like the name should mean something. I nodded politely, still halfway in autopilot. I asked what I could help him with. He hesitated, then blurted it out, because when there's no soft way to deliver a truth, you just drop it. "I think, you're my father." The world didn't spin. My heart didn't explode. Nothing cinematic happened. It felt more like trying to swallow a bite of food that was suddenly too big to manage. I just stared at him. He stared back. I stepped aside and invited him in. I didn't know why. Maybe because his voice shook. Maybe because he had my eyes. We sat at the kitchen table. The eggs on the counter were forgotten. He folded and unfolded his hands while he talked, as if making sure they were still his. He told me about his mother. Lauren. That name pulled a thread I hadn't touched in 2 decades. She was part of a chapter one barely reread in my mind. 2 months of dating in college. She had a quiet laugh and a habit of biting her lip when she concentrated. We were too young to expect anything serious. I ended things because seriousness scared me back then. The truth is, everything scared me back then. I didn't know she left school. I didn't know she was pregnant. I didn't know anything. Adam told me she raised him alone. She never talked about me. She never tried to find me. Then he said something that made the kitchen suddenly feel smaller. She passed away last year. He said it almost casually, like he'd trained his voice not to break anymore. I didn't say, "I'm sorry," at first, not because I didn't feel it, but because I had just learned that a person who once trusted me enough to share her life had suffered without me ever noticing. It felt wrong to jump into sympathy when I had been absent from the entire story. I asked him why he came now. He shrugged slightly. "I wanted to meet you while I still wanted to. Before I changed my mind." It wasn't rude. It was honest. We talked for an hour. Maybe 2. He told me he studied graphic design. He works part-time in IT support. He likes black coffee but ordered tea because he didn't want to seem demanding. He laughs differently than I remember Lauren laughing, but the smile that follows looks exactly like hers. Sometimes I forgot to breathe. Eventually, the conversation slowed into silence. The kind where everything that matters has been said, and everything else suddenly feels too complicated to touch. I asked if he wanted to stay for dinner. He told me he already had plans. We exchanged phone numbers instead. Real ones. No empty promises. Before he walked out, he asked if he could give me something next time. Something his mom left behind. I nodded, even though the idea terrified me. I wasn't sure if the past would feel like a punch or a gift. He gave me a small smile, soft and unsure. Then he said he'd call. When the door closed, the apartment felt unfamiliar. Same walls, same furniture, same unwashed mug in the sink. Different life. For years, I thought I had matured into a man who understood himself. I knew my flaws. I knew what was missing. I thought the answers were simple. Turns out, one of the biggest answers had just walked into my kitchen and introduced himself. He left, but something of him stayed. A possibility. A responsibility. A question. What does a man do when fatherhood arrives 22 years late? I suppose that's what I'm about to find out. Adam didn't call for 3 days. Those 3 days stretched out in a way I haven't felt since job interviews or first dates. I kept checking my phone like a teenager. I wondered if I had said something wrong, asked too many questions, not enough questions, looked too shocked, too calm. I reminded myself that he didn't know me anything. He wasn't the one who disappeared. He was the one who had been left without answers. On the 4th day, he texted. "Can we meet again?" Short message. No emojis. Polite. I stared at it long enough that the screen dimmed twice before I answered yes. He came over on a Saturday, this time wearing a backpack. He took out a cardboard box with "Private" written on top in faded marker. I set it gently on the table, like it might break from being touched by someone who had no right to it. He told me it belonged to his mother. I sat down. He didn't. Inside the box were pieces of a life I had never seen. Photos of Lauren. Her handwriting on birthday cards. A hospital bracelet from the day he was born. A kindergarten painting where a stick figure woman held a stick figure child. The father was missing, which felt fair but still stung. Then I found the letters. Not addressed to me. Addressed to him. Each envelope was labeled by year. Age 5. Age 9. Age 13. Age 18. Age 21, unopened. He watched me carefully, like he wanted to see if I'd try to defend myself against a story I wasn't in. I didn't open the letters. They were not mine to open. He seemed relieved. He told me Lauren had been sick for a long time. She didn't like hospitals. She tried to keep life normal for him. She planned those letters as a way to stay, even after she couldn't. I asked how he found out about me. He took a breath before answering. In the last envelope, she wrote that she didn't want me to meet you. She said you were irresponsible. Unreliable. That you'd hurt me. I didn't interrupt her voice with my own. I let the words sit. Because once upon a time, she was right. He continued. I figured I should see for myself. People change. Not you change. People. Neutral. Protective of himself. I asked if he resented me. He thought about it, then shook his head lightly. I can't resent someone I never knew, he said. But I wanted to know whether Mom was trying to protect me, or protect herself. He didn't say from what. Maybe disappointment. Maybe hope. We decided to go out for a walk. The air was cold enough to give us something simple to focus on. I told him about who I used to be. No excuses. I said I treated college like a stage and myself like the star of a show no one else asked to watch. I told him I left people behind when things got too real. He nodded, absorbing without judgment. We stopped for coffee. He ordered black this time. No tea. He told me a few things about himself, but only the safe ones. His job. His friends. His apartment that always seems to need vacuuming. Nothing about the hard years. Those would come later, if they came at all. On the way back to my place, he asked me a question so unexpectedly practical that it almost made me laugh. What was the first car you owned? I told him about the old Honda that refused to start if the weather dropped below freezing. He grinned like this was a piece of history he could actually hold. It struck me then that connection isn't built from dramatic confessions. It's built from tiny information, favorite foods, first cars, worst haircuts. Pieces of a person you collect over time. Before he left, he said he was still figuring out what he wanted from me. I told him I didn't need an answer yet. I'd just like to know when he wants to meet again. He nodded, lingering long enough to let me know the door hadn't closed behind him. He even said goodbye with a half smile. Softer than last time. Familiar, almost. When the lock clicked after he walked out, the silence didn't feel uncomfortable anymore. It felt like a pause. A breath between sentences. I realized something important. I can't make up for 22 years. I can only show up for the next day. And the day after that. One decision at a time. There's no title for who I am to him yet. I just hope someone worth knowing can be a good place to start. Adam started coming by every weekend. Not because we planned it that way. It just happened. He'd text that he was in the area. I'd ask if he wanted dinner. The routines formed quietly, like plants growing in places you didn't remember watering. We didn't talk about feelings. Not directly. The only emotional territory we carefully tiptoed around was Lauren, and even then, only when he brought her up first. He showed me photos from when he was a kid. Birthdays. School concerts. A crooked paper crown he wore for Halloween one year. His mother always looked tired in the pictures, like she carried more than just her son's weight. Yet she smiled in almost every image, as if love soaked through every bruise life gave her. I asked him once what she was like. He described her in practical details. Organized. Determined. Protective. The kind of woman who didn't complain about being lonely, but probably was. He said she always struggled with trust. That was the closest he came to aiming anything at me. We cooked together sometimes. It was awkward at first. I accidentally burned the chicken one night because I got caught up listening to him talk about his portfolio. He laughed, called it extra crispy, and suggested ordering takeout. That laugh, even short and unsure, felt like forgiveness for 1,000 things he hadn't said out loud. One weekend, he arrived looking heavier somehow, like he had been carrying something around that needed to be set down. He reached into that same cardboard box and pulled out one of the letters. Age 18. The seal already broken. He placed it on the table and leaned back, arms crossed, not defensive, just bracing. He told me he rereads that letter sometimes. The year he turned 18, Lauren had been hospitalized twice. That was when she first admitted she might not beat the illness. She wrote about wanting him to be brave, to not shut people out, to try new things even when they scared him. Then she warned him again not to find me. He was never what you needed, she wrote. He will only make promises he won't keep. That line sank into me like a stone. I asked him why he brought it. He stared at the table before answering. I want to understand her. And I want to understand you. Those two things feel connected. We sat there quietly, the letter lying between us like a boundary we were both learning how to navigate. I told him the truth. I wasn't the man his mother needed back then either. I thought life was just a series of nights to survive until morning. Responsibility felt like a trap. Commitment felt even worse. I wasn't ready, I admitted. Not to be anyone's father. Not even to be someone decent. He absorbed that with the same calm expression he always had. He didn't praise my honesty. He didn't criticize my past. He just let the truth be what it was. Then he surprised me. She was scared, he said quietly. She was afraid I'd chase after someone who wouldn't stay. He unfolded the letter again and tapped a different line. She wrote that I should choose people who choose me. That one hit harder. We didn't say anything for a while. We just sat there with the sound of the clock ticking and the unspoken truth sitting across from us. Adam eventually put the letter back in the envelope, carefully like he was returning something precious to its place. He didn't put it away though. He just kept a hand resting on it. Maybe that's what trust looks like early on. Not handing someone your heart. Just letting them sit next to the box it's stored in. He looked up at me after a long minute. So, he asked, are you going to choose me? Not angry. Not hopeful. Just practical. Like a question about carrying something heavy up the stairs. Yes, I said. Every time. He didn't smile. He just nodded. As if the answer was a small step in a very long walk. Later, when he left for the night, he forgot the letter on the table. I noticed it after I washed the dishes. I stared at it, wondering if I should read it. Wondering if he left it here on purpose. I didn't open it. I picked it up and held it for a while, feeling the weight of paper that had guided someone's life in my absence. I realized I had always imagined fatherhood as loud and proud, teaching a kid to ride a bike, cheering from bleachers, giving embarrassing pep talks. I never imagined it would start quietly, with two adults trying to build a bridge backwards across years of missing context. The past isn't going anywhere. We just have to decide what to do with it now. The next weekend, Adam arrived earlier than usual. He knocked only once, then let himself in like it was already a habit forming. That small act, no hesitation at the doorway, felt bigger than any speech. He noticed the letter immediately, right where he left it. You didn't read it, he said, more observation than question. No, I replied. It wasn't mine to read. He looked at me for a long second, almost like he was trying to decide something invisible. Then he pulled out another envelope. This one said age 21. I never opened this one, he said. I thought, maybe we could read it together. He didn't hand it to me. He opened it himself. His fingers were steady, but his breathing wasn't. Lauren's handwriting filled the page. He read silently at first. Then he read aloud the parts that struck him. She wrote about hope. About how proud she was of the man he was becoming. She apologized that life wouldn't let her stay long enough to see who he would be at 30 or 40. And near the end, her words slowed into caution. I pray you never need him, she wrote. If you do find him, be careful with your heart. Adam folded the letter along the same creases it already had, then placed it gently back in the envelope. He didn't cry. He didn't break. He just nodded once, acknowledging his mother's love and her fear in the same gesture. I know she meant well, he said. She wanted to protect me. He looked up at me. But I needed to see for myself. There were 100 things I could have said. Apologies. Promises. Regrets. None of it felt helpful. So I said the only thing that mattered in the moment. I'm glad you came. We talked after that about ordinary things. His work schedule. My terrible cooking skills. His favorite video games. A documentary he liked. It wasn't deep, but it was real, and at this stage real was enough. Eventually, he asked what I wanted out of this. Not who I wanted to be. Not what I regretted. Just, what I hoped for now. I told him I didn't want to replace anyone. His mother would always be his home base. I didn't want to rewrite the story of his life. I wanted to join it wherever there was space. He seemed to appreciate that answer. We decided to try one new thing each month together. Not forced bonding. Just something neither of us had done before. A hike. A cooking class. A baseball game. Whatever felt right. A plan without pressure. When he got up to leave, he didn't rush. He put on his shoes slowly, like he wasn't sure whether to stay a little longer. Before stepping out, he paused at the door and turned back around. I want you to be in my life, he said. Plain. Direct. Kind. But I need time. That's okay, I replied. I have time. He gave a small nod. Then he left with another soft goodbye, the kind that didn't feel like an ending. After the door clicked shut, I picked up the dishes from dinner and washed them with a strange lightness in my chest. The apartment didn't feel lonely anymore. It felt like a place where someone might come back. Later, I sat at the table for a while, staring at nothing in particular, letting everything settle. Life hasn't given me a chance to be the dad who teaches bedtime stories or how to ride a bike. I won't have school year memories or scraped knees or awkward parent-teacher meetings. That's gone, and that's okay. I get something else. I get a second chance at the part where your kid becomes an adult and you earn a place in their world not because you share a last name, but because you show up. Maybe I'll mess up. Probably I will. I can't promise perfection. I can promise presence. There's no dramatic transformation waiting around the corner. Just two people taking small steps forward, one weekend at a time. He exists. He's here. He chose to knock on my door. And now I get to choose him, every day, for as long as he'll let me.